Okay, we're going to tie a sash. Sash stands for spectrumized amber soft hackle. And the spectrumized part comes from the blend of materials that Tom Ames uses to do the body on this. The tail and the wing is Hungarian partridge, and I've got a Hungarian partridge skin here. I'm going to select one of these feathers off the upper part for the collar or hackle. And I'll take one of these body feathers from down here for the tailing material. Get the longer fibers, makes it easier to tail with that stuff. So take some of that tailing material, and I'm going to turn and look here, use the rotary technique, so I'm looking right down on top of the hook so that I can see when I grab this material, I grab it right on top. I'm spinning my thread in a clockwise direction so I know it's going to lean towards the back when I wrap and trap this material like that. And then I use the roly-poly to just roll down, give me a side view and reference so I can tell when I wrap back far enough on my tail. When I get back to here, you notice I put this wrap down underneath and pull it up. It's the reason I put that tail material on without an under wrap. I tied it right to the shank so that when I did that wrap and back and pulled up, it would cause those tail materials to flare. Now I've positioned the thread and the head and got it in the right position for me to add my ribbing material to the bottom of the hook. Just getting that thread and head in the right place for this next step ahead of time is an advantage. Now I'm going to roll this a little bit so I can see I'm keeping my rib right on the bottom, and I just want to wrap back to where I stopped tying in my tail material. Then to roll this hook over and get it in position and put that rib in my material clip. Now this is the spectrumized amber dubbing that Tom Ames talks about, and he blends this out of acrylic yarn. You can see how sparkly this stuff is when you get it up close here and look, and you see the different colors in it. Well, that's just a acrylic yarn that you can get at any yarn shop, and you can buy it in a variety of colors, of course. And Tom Ames recommends using for this pattern to use olive, use hot orange, and to use yellow. And you just cut up lengths of this stuff and unravel it a little bit and throw it in a Mr. Coffee coffee blender and give it a buzz and wet it. Makes it a lot easier, and blend equal amounts of the yellow and the olive and the hot orange, and from that twisted yarn, this is what you get. It's pretty amazing dubbing. It works very well. Dub's easy, got a lot of sparkle to it, but it's not overly flashy. Now I take this dub and I'm going to hold it in my right hand and dub with my left hand, and come in here and dub a fairly thin body rope. And once I get the dubbing all onto the thread, you notice how sharply I wrap back towards the rear of the hook. I did that to use up the bare thread that I had left and start my body right with the narrowest amount of dubbing on the thread, so that as I wrap forward and my dubbing rope that I've got here gets thicker, so will the body as I'm wrapping forward. So I'll get a nice taper to this body. And I like to rotate the vise putting this stuff on instead of wrapping with my thread hand. And one of the reasons is I get to see if I leave any gaps on the back side of the hook as I'm wrapping my dubbing forward. Now I've got a little more dubbing than I need. I'm just going to strip that off. Make a wrap or two here to tie down the end of that, get those few fibers pulled back. And I'm making 4 or 5 extra wraps here. And I'm doing that so that I can reverse wrap my rib. And as I reverse wrap this rib, see, I pull it down like this so I got good grip on it. And I'm going to be wiggling and pulling tight. See how I got good tension on that? And I'm wrapping in the reverse direction of my thread, so those extra wraps that I made will come undone, and my thread will be hanging right up there, waiting for me to finish wrapping the rib. You see my bobbin dropping down off the bottom of the screen. That's because those wraps are coming undone. I'm going to do the 4, maybe 5 wraps extra that I did with thread are going to be unwrapped with these 4 or 5 body wraps, ribbing wraps. And then I stop and I trap this. I make a wrap in front of the tinsel, come around behind it again, make another wrap in front, and I know that's good and tight and secure, and I can trim that off. And we're about done on this fly. We just need to pick up some of this body material with a dubbing pick. and do a soft hackle collar or a soft hackle wrap on the front, and we're in good shape. I have a lot of faith in this fly, and I have to admit I haven't fished it, but I've tied a lot of them up. There's going to be a bunch in my box this year. Anything Tom Ames says fishes well in my book is a fly worth carrying. Okay, so we're going to use the Hungarian body feather here. I checked the length of the fibers on it, to see that they're about the length of the shank. And then I trim off all the fluff and stroke the fibers back from the tip, and now I'm going to cut the tip hackles off and trim those down a little bit so I can tie this feather in by the tip. Now once you trim that tip down, you have to stroke all the fibers back and pull them back away from the tip so you can tie the tip in. Now you see here I'm stroking these back. If I don't get all the fibers pulled to the rear, I can't tie this tip in correctly without getting a bunch of misaligned fibers. See, like I got just a couple here that don't want to go back. Well, if I try to tie it in, you see what happens. I mean, I'm gonna trap those fibers and misalign them when I tie it in, and they'll look bad. So I got to grip it like that so that all those fibers are pulled to the rear when I tie it in. Now I make this wrap, tie in, trap that quill, pull it up a little bit so that it's in the right spot. And I got one little errant fiber here I'll pick away. But see, now I got that trapped in. I had plenty of length, even though I just had that little bit of tip. I had plenty of length to trap it and tie it securely. Now hold the feather back out of the way and wrap up to where the quill meets the body here. Roll this over, use the roly-poly technique, take advantage of the ease of grabbing things with your hackle pliers and stuff, the ease that's created by rolling the feather over to your side so you don't have to reach to the back of the hook. And now I'm going to use the fold and wrap technique. And see, I just bring my thumb in here and stroke these fibers, squeeze them between my thumb and forefinger, bring my thumb in, stroke again as I wrap, and that holds them to the back, effectively folding them as I'm wrapping them. Come up here again, stroke them to the rear and wrap a little bit. Now bring my hand around with the vise, stroke in here and wrap, and that folds those back so you get a proper soft hackle cone or collar on this thing. And that's about 1.5 wraps. That's all I really want. I come up behind this quill, work my way through. There's one fiber I want to get there. We go and push that to the rear. Come up in front. Now pass behind it again. Work through those fibers. Try not to trap any down. Pull that down good and tight. Bend this quill up. And then just trim that off. Whoops, pardon my fingers here. I just can't get at it any other way. But I'm just going to trim that quill off. There you go. And all I got to do now is do a whip finish knot and see if I can wrap down some of that little bit of the tip that's sticking out by the eye of the hook. It looks big under this magnification. It's so small you can just barely see it. But I just make a few wraps up against the base of those fibers, to keep them back, and I'll see if I can get some of that stuff. It looks big, that little bump, but it's not really. It's just the magnification. I go back and make a couple wraps over that. That about has it. That's close enough. It's good enough for fishing. That's what I tie my flies for, is to fish them. So I'll do a whip finish knot, and I've got a finished fly. Again, he calls it the Sash, which is short for spectrumized amber soft hackle. This Hungarian partridge is great stuff to tie with. Trim that off. Stand some of these partridge feathers up, or fibers up. Break up the clumps of them. Once you get these broken apart, they stay apart pretty good. And there it is. Nice, quick, easy tie. I plan on it being a very effective fly for me. I'm sure it's going to work well. And there you have a Sash, or spectrumized amber soft hackle, tied using Rotary Fly Tying Techniques.